some card sorting thing, empathy mapping thing, user journey mapping thing, or something like those crazy ATES or frameworks. When I had opportunity to work in a team, I want to work on various kind of projects and with so many multiple people. It's never the same starting point. You get to involve in a project sometime in mid, and that is something a little hectic for you if you are not approaching a particular process. So these frameworks are something which are not just a buzzwords, but something which you can actually perform in a way that helps the other person who is joining the process in between to understand how it is going on. Now, let's move ahead to something I would like to call team versus individual. When you will work in a company, it is a different setting. When you work or start working as an individual, maybe a freelancer, it's a different setting. As a company team member, you have other people, your peers, your folks, they will keep telling you how these comments are going to work as a design language. They will help you to translate those things. But when it comes to it as an individual, you are so dependent over what your client is saying. If somebody says, make this logo bigger, you must have heard about that one like a lot, right? Make this logo bigger, bring the pop-up colors. But sometimes, they are not exactly or literal meaning of what they want to say. When it comes to make the logo bigger, that means bring the figures back to the logo. The attention is so much divided, I cannot understand where is logo and it is not memorable enough. That translation is something in bigger forms design managers are responsible to bring. But when you work individually, you are completely dependent over your client feedback. And we forget, clients are the clients. They know how to run a business, but they are not designed for teams. They just don't know how to speak to you in your design language. That's why it's really important to be aware of some hurdles which may come across when you work dependently. First of all, is something I would like to call cliche client comments. If somebody is saying you that bring the attention back to the particular subject you guys are working on, it's very easy to do. You can remove the rest of things and bring the attention back. But if somebody is saying, make this thing bigger, you won't be able to understand, right? That's why it's important to not face those client cliche on their face, but instead let the other people who knows how to handle them so that you can get away from the second hurdle, which is creative paralysis. If you are a designer, you must have heard about this term a lot. But if you are not from design background, creative paralysis may sound like something, okay, I don't know where it is going, but I feel stuck. It's a universal feeling of being stuck, especially if you are working in a creative sector. Creative paralysis is that one. These is something which you can actually realize if you are a writer, somebody who is into writing a stories or something like where you have to research a lot and there is no one-way process to bring the attention. So that is when creative paralysis happens and that is triggered by some cliche line comments as I said. Lastly, we have designer's blindness. I am not throwing away any buzzwords in front of you so that you can understand the psychology that we know. Designer blindness is something. When you work too closely with your project itself, you stop figuring out something like, I can see something is wrong, but I can't tell what is wrong. And sometimes it is also, other people can figure out there is some misalignment in the structure. I cannot see the same thing until they are pointing out. That is designer's blindness. Designer blindness is not a single thing which happens to you, but also a thing which is not very common in between team settings. When you are working alone, you can overthink. You have that leverage to do that because you are working alone. You have just one client meeting in a day or maybe twice, but you don't get back-to-back comments like that. But when it comes to working in a team, your people will come and tell you what is wrong and what is not wrong. This is something which I would like to say, a 3D design process which can help you to overcome this. You know, when we face all those three obstacles, when we directly jump from designing to delivering our project, and we forget there is one more step in between, that is undesigning. Our topic for today actually. Undesigning is that particular setting You must have heard about that quote, less is more. As a designer, we all know that quote, isn't it? But we forget it's not something just for the minimalism. But if you are working on something like maximalist thing, this quote can work there as well. It is all about not minimalizing the visual clutter. It's about minimalizing the cognitive load to the users or the viewer who will going to use that design. So, undesigning help you to reduce that. Lastly, we have evolution of undesigning, which is actually more important for you. As a beginner designer, when you will start figuring out how to undesign something, how to clear the clutter visually, you will develop a sense of mindset that will help you at product managerial role, and that is the evolution of undesigning. I would like to present something like removing visual clutter to next removing a feature. When you work in a company setting, you will get an authority to actually remove a feature. For example, if I have to take an example, we can say Instagram. Instagram has so many updates in recent days, which you guys all might relate to. There are some new features like Blend. You guys have heard about that? Blend is that feature which has, I don't know what is the value of Blend. I have never seen anybody using that feature actually. But it is a feature that is actually proposed by some product manager in their company, and definitely that's why it is here in your phone. These kind of features are simply authoritative to the product managers, and then we can follow three-step framework to actually apply some undesigning rules to figure out what to keep and what not to keep. Number one, treat killing a feature as removing or adding a feature. When you guys can relate to graphic design perspective as well, and also from product manager perspective as well. Whenever you are putting something like feature or a new element to your own posters, please make sure whenever you plan something to keep, also plan to why you are removing it. Make a proper user guide. Define all the categories which will going to relate afterwards, which we say management, like community management, where we think about the stakeholders will gonna be affected by this feature, or we're going to talk about the cost which will be affected, like server cost and everything, because if something is cheap to keep doesn't mean it is good for you, and as vice versa, if something is expensive to keep doesn't mean it's worthless. So it's very important to plan. Secondly, identify the right feature to kill. That is also something which you can figure out through the user research. When it comes to user research, what is the purpose? What is the conclusion of user research? User research helps you to actually understand which users to focus on. We have so many categories, we have so many end users at our project, so it's very important to identify which feature to do. Lastly, communicate the depreciation roadmap to users. Before removing anything from your own product, make sure you're communicating really well. You must guys have seen onboarding things nowadays have multiple steps, like a progress bar. You cannot onboard in as one step. You have multiple bars. So that is actually depreciation roadmap, good example.